Welcome back to Hilaal Live. Now, the rail industry in South Africa continues to grow through a difficult period, with Transnet being that state-owned enterprise which has suffered during the period of state capture up until now. Now, the IMF had said that the South African economy can grow by 3%, but it would need an organization like Transnet and also Eskom to return to its glory days and show some growth. Joining us now to discuss the state of South African rail is the African Railroad Association CEO, Mesela Nhlapo. Mesela, good day and thank you so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live.
Good day.
Yeah. Mesela, let's start off, of course, with Transnet. We've seen a lot of their leadership leaving the state-owned enterprise. Obviously, just yesterday, Ali Motala, who of course runs the rate frail part of Transnet. When you have this exodus, it doesn't bode well for the rail industry, does it?
It's a difficult question to answer, but I would like to put South Africans at ease that the recovery is here, and I am confident that we are going into the right direction. We have wasted a lot of time, but I am glad that sanity prevails, and now we're going to see the implementation of the national rail policy, which states that the private sector will actively participate and use the railways in order to add on what Transnet is already doing. So we are not going to replace Transnet. Private sector will be to fast track that growth that we are seeking.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking about, obviously, the private sector involvement. Last week, I saw an article that the Development Bank of Southern Africa will, of course, be involved in this. Right now, I think Transnet would take any assistance that they could get, especially now knowing the importance of freight rail within South Africa for the transportation of goods and, of course, growing the economy.
Yeah. You know, unlike Eskom, when the logistics, when the railways fail, it takes time for most of us to see it. But eventually you start seeing it because you're not getting your goods through the port, and then the railways are not working. But I think those days are over as we look forward to have new capable railway men and women to continue running the organization. And somebody said, do we have a gap that the skills are going to come back? I said, first of all, the skills are still there within Transnet. It's not true that the skills are not there. Two, the people that ran Transnet in 2017, 2018, they did something. Whatever that they did, we need to have those people back to guide us. The people that, a leader that will read the hearts of the people at Transnet. And that person will be supported by the African Rail Industry Association as long as they perform.
Yeah, performance is important because we've seen, obviously, during the era of state capture, so much had occurred. And of course, we saw post that, a lot of sabotage to many of the railways. I think that's going to be important, isn't it? The making sure that the infrastructure is solved so that these trains can be back on the railway lines and delivering services for the people of South Africa.
Oh, absolutely. But we have to be a team player. All of us South Africans, we have to be team players. We need Transnet to work, and we have to support Transnet to work. And we are also fortunate that we find ourselves where Transnet is now a member of the African Rail Industry Association. So we won't be talking past each other. We'll have them on the table and have a constructive engagement with them. We're glad that the board has put out a strategy. We're glad that the National Treasury will be able to assist, and any other financing industry, if they believe in Mesela, if they believe that Mesela was right for the past 2-3 years regarding the state of Transnet, I'm saying that it's time to invest back into Transnet. They need us, we need them to survive. The continent is waiting for us, and we can only start here from home if we want to grow as a country.
We've seen successes, obviously, with regards to Transnet, just in terms of the Sishen-Saldanha railway line, which is functioning quite well. But how do we make sure that the exports of many of the South African materials are on these trains and, of course, are heading to its destinations to mitigate another industry that, of course, needs to be there, but obviously its role and how it's going to be played, that is the trucking industry. Is there obviously consultation between, the African Rail Industry Association and, of course, various trucking industries in cooperation with the Department of Transport in order to make sure that both these industries are functioning well and are functioning safely for South Africa?
The trucking industry and the rail industry cannot operate without each other. So that should never be misunderstood, that will be replaced, railways will replace trucks. They will not. You always need a trucking that will be the last mile. You always need to have the goods that are rail friendly to go back to railways. And the freight owners want to have their goods traveling by rail again. One is cheaper, two is cleaner. So we respond to all different things. And the job creation that comes with a functioning railway system is just such a beautiful, positive domino effect that we'll see in the country. And most of the social ills that we have in the country will be resolved.
Mesela, the IMF, they said that it would need, for that 3% to occur, obviously Eskom being one of them, but we're not going to talk about Eskom, we're going to talk mainly about Transnet. That 3%, Transnet needs to get back to those glory days, to a functioning state-owned enterprise. How far are we from that happening, or could we say we are close to it being achieved in terms of Transnet getting to where it has to be in order to function as a working SOE?
We now have a political will to ensure that our railroads run. And that, for me, is a big thing. We have the policy in line. We agree that there needs to be a reform. So the 3% growth, it will not necessarily be on the door of Transnet, if I may put it that way, but also the private sector. And maybe if we are looking at the IMF 3%, it might actually be more than that. And I think we don't appreciate our resilience as South Africa and how we all come to the party when we are faced with a situation like this. From COVID, it was business with government. Here we are again, is business with government. It's not government on its own, but we are holding each other's hand to make the railways work again. But I just want to, one of the recommendations that we have publicized widely is that when the board recruits a CEO, it must be a CEO that will be able to transition Transnet from a closed monopoly to a reconfigured, open, and transformed organization in line with the national rail policy and the broader economic needs of the South African economy. Now, that is quite key. We have heard about the ghost trains. Another recommendation, bring back the staff with strong rail operations capacity. That's from the leadership point of view. But as I've said, there are those that are still at Transnet that, Mesela, we are here. Speak on our behalf. I'm speaking on their behalf. We need to see the Transnet that will work with the industry, because the manufacturing industry in South Africa depends on it. Many households depend on this. So with the plan that the roadmap that is being talked about, the roadmap is simply another document that's saying that how we're going to implement the policy. So it's not reinventing of the wheel. The roadmap simply speaks to the policy that is already there. And it's not true that there's a dismantling of Transnet. It's not true, because The policy that was launched by the ruling party and under Minister Fikile Mbalula, they signed off the policy as is today. So we've got, we believe that we have a good support from government to make our railways work. And we are compelled to make the railways work. It's not something that we wish it to happen, but our economy needs it. And for us to survive in this economy, we need to make sure that we work together and deliver on the mandate that Transnet has.
I agree with you there. We need Transnet to work because it creates jobs. But most importantly, if we can get to the 3% as projected by the IMF, I think it would make such a big difference. Mesela, thank you so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. That's Mesela Nhlapo. She's the CEO of the African Railroad Association. After the break, I'll have your latest in news. Do stay tuned.